The room is cloaked in a heavy, suffocating darkness, where the relentless ticking of the clock echoes like a judge's gavel. You drag your exhausted vessel into what should be a sanctuary, your bed. Yet the moment your eyes close, the theater of your mind powers on, broadcasting your greatest hits of failure and hypothetical disasters in blinding, merciless resolution. You survived the daylight with a passable facade, but in the unforgiving silence of the night, you are ambushed by a nameless dread. You toss, you turn, and the glowing numbers on your screen mockingly inform you that it is already 3 o'clock a.m. The mounting deficit of sleep breeds a frantic desperation, and your soul feels like it is anchored to the bottom of the ocean. Rest assured, you are not the only one drowning in this midnight misery. But why do we reserve the darkest hours to meticulously dissect our past blunders, obsess over the opinions of strangers, and tremble at a future that does not yet exist? It is not merely a surplus of caffeine or a bad day at the office. Tonight, alongside Lofia, we shall dissect the 3 psychological traps actively cannibalizing your peace of mind. This is not another pedestrian guide to sleep hygiene. We are going to examine the neurobiological hardware of your brain through the merciless lens of science and wash the mud from your weary soul using the ancient, unyielding wisdom of both the East and the West. Keep your warm tea close, surrender your pathetic resistance, and listen. The first architect of your insomnia is the trap of past regret. The moment your head hits the pillow, your brain decides it is the perfect time to replay a slightly awkward conversation you had with a colleague hours ago, or worse, a mortifying social faux pas from 5 years ago that makes you want to spontaneously combust. Why did I say that? I should have remained silent. These thoughts are parasites. The more you try to squash them, the deeper they burrow. From a neurobiological standpoint, your nocturnal self-flagellation is entirely predictable. Your brain comes equipped with a default mode network. When you are not actively engaged in a task, say when you are lying paralyzed in the dark, this network powers up. Tragically, its favorite pastime is rummaging through the garbage bins of your memory to evaluate your ego. Evolutionarily speaking, our ancestors survived the brutal wilderness by remembering the bad, not the good. Forgetting the berries that poisoned you or the predator that nearly mauled you was a one-way ticket to extinction. Thus, your brain is hardwired to archive your failures with excruciating clarity. You are not losing sleep because you are fundamentally flawed. You are losing sleep because you are operating on an outdated evolutionary software designed for the savanna, not the suburbs. However, you are no longer being hunted by apex predators. That primal survival instinct has mutated into a thorn festering in your spirit. The great Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius, writing from a dust-choked military tent amidst actual warfare, noted, "It is not events that disturb people, but their judgments concerning them." The absolute core of Stoicism is the brutal severing of what you can control from what you cannot. That awkward remark you made yesterday, it has already dissolved into the ether. It is entirely beyond your jurisdiction. Pouring your agonizing midnight energy into an unchangeable past is as intellectually bankrupt as trying to water a dead flower. Eastern Buddhist philosophy diagnoses this exact neurosis as taking the second arrow. Life, in all its chaotic cruelty, will inevitably shoot you with the first arrow, a mistake, a failure, a sudden loss. But lying in bed, replaying the event and calling yourself a fool, that is you picking up a second, third, and fourth arrow and gleefully stabbing yourself in the chest. The first arrow was unavoidable. The subsequent arrows are a choice. You must drop the bow. The past version of you made the best possible decision with the limited emotional intelligence they possessed at the time. Do not resurrect the past into a living monster. It is merely a fossil. When the jaws of regret open tonight, coldly state to yourself, "I did what I had to do then, and I am marginally wiser now. It is out of my hands, and I release it." The moment you declare this, the suffocating weight of history will evaporate. Once you have exhausted the past, your brain maliciously pivots to the future, plunging you into the trap of anxiety and control. What if I butcher tomorrow's presentation? What if I am falling behind in life? What if financial ruin is just around the corner? This endless cascade of catastrophic what-ifs spikes your heart rate and coats you in a cold sweat. When darkness falls, your amygdala, the brain's primitive panic button, becomes hypervigilant. For early humans, the visual deprivation of the night was the most terrifying, vulnerable time. Every snapped twig triggered a massive dump of cortisol, preparing the body to fight or flee. Today, lying in the safety of your modern bedroom, your brain is still manufacturing cortisol, reacting to a hypothetical PowerPoint presentation as if it were a prowling tiger. Your body is horizontal, but your nervous system is running a marathon. The 19th century Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard captured the essence of this terror perfectly, defining anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. When you stand at the edge of a cliff, the vertigo you feel is not just the fear of falling. It is the terrifying realization that you possess the absolute freedom to throw yourself off. You are terrified of the future precisely because you have too many choices. The crushing responsibility of sculpting your own destiny is what keeps you awake. To sedate this arrogance, we must turn to the ancient Eastern wisdom of Laozi's Tao Te Ching. Laozi championed Wu Wei, the art of non-action. This does not mean wallowing in lazy apathy. It means surrendering your pathetic need to micromanage the universe and aligning yourself with its natural flow. Consider the supreme virtue of water. When water encounters a boulder, it does not throw an anxious tantrum. It elegantly flows around it. We harbor the delusional belief that if we calculate every variable of tomorrow, we will be safe. But the torrential river of life could not care less about your meticulous little spreadsheets. This mirrors the Western theological concept of divine providence, the profound trust that even amidst the chaotic, terrifying unknown, a greater current is guiding you toward exactly where you need to be. True peace only arrives the exact moment you relinquish the arrogant, suffocating desire to play God with your own life. You do not need to solve tomorrow's crises tonight. In fact, you are entirely incapable of doing so. When the sun rises, the morning version of you will possess the precise energy required to face the day. When the tidal wave of anxiety hits, stop clenching your fists. Open your palms in the dark, breathe, and remind yourself, I command nothing of the future, but I am entirely capable of surfing whatever wave arrives. You are far more resilient than your midnight panic allows you to believe. The final architect of your nocturnal misery is the trap of comparison and perfectionism. Unable to sleep, you inevitably reach for your phone, plunging into the curated, brightly lit lies of social media. Everyone else is dining at Michelin star restaurants, securing promotions, and performing the pantomime of a flawless existence. The moment you contrast their hyper-filtered highlight reels with your current reality, lying pathetic and exhausted in the dark, a venomous sense of relative deprivation floods your veins. What have I done with my life? You shrink into nothingness. Humans are fundamentally social animals. Acceptance within the tribe floods the brain with dopamine. Rejection in our tribal days meant starving to death in the cold. Therefore, your brain is obsessively wired to calculate your social ranking. But in a digital era where you are forced to compare your behind-the-scenes reality with the heavily doctored highlights of billions, this evolutionary quirk has become an endless psychological hell. Confucius offered a brutally clear dichotomy for this modern plague. He labeled those who obsessively seek external validation and bend to the whims of the crowd as Zhaoren, the petty, small-minded person. Conversely, the Junzi, the noble person, establishes an unshakable internal standard of virtue, entirely indifferent to the applause or mockery of the masses. As the Analects state, I am not concerned that I am not known. I seek to be worthy to be known. The reason you are writhing in agony tonight is because you have pawned off your self-worth to the distorted, fickle mirrors of other people's desires. The Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung takes this a step further. We all parade around in a persona, the flawless, socially acceptable mask we wear during the day. But behind it lurks the shadow, the flawed, messy, shameful parts of ourselves we desperately try to hide. In the quiet isolation of the night, your pathetic shadow crawls out from beneath the bed. You violently reject it, demanding perfection. But Jung warned that until you turn and embrace your darkest, most incompetent facets, you will never achieve individuation. You will never be whole. Your flaws and your failures are not evidence of your inferiority. They are the magnificent bleeding proof of your humanity. The 13th century Sufi mystic Rumi wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop." Cease this tragic habit of reducing yourself to a worthless puddle just because you are staring at someone else's garden. Their flowers may be red, but that does not render your green leaves devoid of value. Retract the sadistic standards you apply to yourself and look upon your inner child with radical, unapologetic mercy. Tell yourself, you took a beating today, you stumbled, and you are deeply flawed, and yet you are entirely enough. Only when you grant yourself this brutal grace will your soul be paroled from the prison of public opinion. My dear viewers, the night is not a curse sent to torment you. Just as the universe demands, the aggressive, exhausting yang energy of the day must surrender to the silent, restorative yin energy of the night for life to sustain itself. Like the pristine lotus tearing its way through the suffocating mud, the anxiety, the regret, and the bitter comparisons that flood your mind are merely the dark fertilizer required to bloom a deeper, more profound consciousness. Stop falling for the cheap alarms your brain keeps triggering. The past is a dead phantom. The future is a hallucination. The opinions of others are a meaningless shadow play. The only territory you hold sovereignty over is this exact fleeting second. Inhale deeply, exhale the toxic debris of the day. Anchor your attention to the weight of your body sinking into the mattress, the still air of the room, and the defiant rhythm of your own heart. In this singular moment, you are untouchable, and there is absolutely nothing in this universe that can diminish your inherent worth. Relinquish your desperate grip on reality and simply close your eyes. Let the darkness serve as a heavy blanket over your bruised ego, and allow the silence to wash the mud from your exhausted spirit. I am certain that when the dawn breaks, you will face the sun with a spine made of steel. If this bitter pill of truth from the philosophy goddess managed to cure your self-inflicted insomnia and drag you out of your pathetic midnight spirals, you may subscribe, like, and ring the bell to awaken further, or don't, and continue wrestling with the ghosts of your own mediocrity every night at 3 a.m. The choice, as always, is tragically yours. This was Lofia wishing you a brutally peaceful night.